California, we're known for our beaches, our landmarks, our wine, and our traffic. As the most populous state, we have the most cars on the road. But on the other hand, our cities have some of the worst air pollution in the United States. But it looks like we're on the road to change.
By 2035, in the next 15 years, we will eliminate in the state of California the sales of internal combustion engines.
A lofty goal from California's governor with an even more ambitious timeline.
California is really taking the lead on trying to make this a reality.
But is this goal attainable? Can California get across the finish line?
And the future is clear. The future is zero emission.
Hello, I'm ABC News automotive reporter Dave Coons. Here in the Golden State, we are the leader in the zero emissions transportation industry. State data shows that sales of electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles have grown exponentially over the past decade. In 2011, fewer than 7,000 were sold. By 2021, that number was 250,000, and that number is more than triple of the number of vehicles from 2017. And we're leading the nation. Zero-emission cars in California make up nearly 40% of all zero-emission cars in the U.S., despite making up just about 10% of all cars in the country. The most popular electric car brand by far, Tesla, which made up more than half of electric vehicle sales in 2021. And those that have driven them love them.
They're so fun. They're so zippy.
The car handles great, performs really well.
This is one of the things that we're really lucky when you have a clean energy technology that's actually superior in terms of performance.
But they're more than just fun to drive. The American Lung Association estimates that a transition to zero-emission transportation and clean electricity in California could save $169 billion in public health benefits, avoid 440,000 asthma attacks, and save more than 15,000 lives. But environmentalists are concerned about trade-offs like mining.
In order to have electric vehicles, we need new metals that we've never needed at scale before, metals like lithium and cobalt.
And experts say there's still a long way to go.
We're at this critical time where both the introduction of new electric vehicles themselves as well as the electric vehicle charging infrastructure are growing, and they both really need to grow together in order to get consumers truly on board.
Both the state and federal government are investing billions of dollars to accelerate the implementation of charging stations. California also has rebate programs to help offset the cost of vehicles themselves, which can be more expensive. So this looks to be better for our health, and the government is putting serious money into getting people to buy these. Still, there are some challenges along the way. First, what it's going to take to cross that finish line on the road to zero.
Two very critical things that really need to happen simultaneously. The cost of the vehicles need to come down, but the infrastructure needs to go up.
More and more Californians are buying electric cars, and so far, most of those sales are clustered in urban areas. In 2021, 2/3 of sales happened in these 5 counties. But why? It's clear when you look at two things, where the chargers are and where the money is. When we compare maps of where charging stations are, where people make the most money, and where the cars are being sold, they all look very similar. Here are the charging stations, income, cars sold. The similarity of these maps shows that the spread of infrastructure has, in the past, happened in the same areas where people could afford these more expensive cars.
The same Californians who tend to live in communities most affected by air pollution, they're the same ones that you would think we should be getting the access to the clean vehicles, but that's not always the case.
So what can be done to change this?
Infrastructure, to me, is our biggest challenge. You know, we had over 100 years to build out refueling for gasoline vehicles, and now we want to do that in the next 10 years.
Patty Monahan from the California Energy Commission says the state will need 1.2 million public and shared electric vehicle chargers by 2030. The latest data shows we're now just under 80,000.
So we have a long way to go in terms of building out that infrastructure to meet the needs of the future fleet of zero-emission vehicles that are coming.
President Biden's infrastructure plan includes nearly $400 million for California to help build a network of charging stations. But Monahan says the state is investing even more money.
Last year, there was $900 million of general fund that came to the Energy Commission. This year, the governor is proposing a $2 billion investment.
One of the Energy Commission's programs is the California Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Project, which works with local partners to develop and provide incentives for EV charger installations. More than half of the nearly $130 million invested have gone to disadvantaged or low-income communities.
There's no plan B. This is the world we have.
Luis Olmedo is the executive director of a health and environmental justice nonprofit in Imperial County, an area that has, until recently, received very little investment in zero-emission transportation.
And that's why Imperial today is in the very last, having the least per capita, the least amount of chargers in all California. And it's egregious. This is stuff that has been available in abundance to large metropolitan areas. It just hasn't been available to rural America.
Olmedo's nonprofit was able to facilitate the first charging station funded by the state in Imperial County. But he says there's still room for improvement in historically underserved rural areas.
Even though the rebates are there, they're still far and unaffordable for a disadvantaged low-income community. Once you apply in that program, then you can get up to $4,000 rebate per, I'll call it per electrical outlet. The cost to build in a whole new electrical infrastructure is more in the proximity of $60,000 when it's all said and done, and that's because you got to put in a new electrical system, new switch gear, new sub panels, new risers. This is all language I'm learning through this process.
Charging infrastructure will be important to the 40% of Californians who live in apartments or condos and may not have the ability to charge their cars at home.
Those people are going to have to depend on public charging infrastructure. And without that public charging infrastructure, all of those people really won't find an electric vehicle to be relevant to their lifestyle or their living situations. So you have to have that infrastructure in order to get less affluent people into those vehicles in the first place.
But infrastructure isn't the only piece of the puzzle.
This is kind of a classic chicken and egg question. We've found that our customers are very smart about how to make the most of the infrastructure that does exist in the Valley.
Tom Knox is the executive director of Valley Clean Air Now, a nonprofit that helps residents in the San Joaquin Valley access cleaner transportation.
It's going to be great when there's more infrastructure, but we don't want to wait for that. Let's make that behavior change. Let's show people this is possible.
So how do they help people buy these cars? They help with the cost.
If we can be cost competitive with the older gas-powered cars that we're really trying to get off the road, then it becomes a very easy choice for our customers, to get into those cars.
Valley Clean Air Now gets funding from the California Air Resources Board to help distribute incentives for people buying clean energy cars. These incentives are available statewide, and many have provisions for low-income families.
California has numerous incentives, both financial and non-financial, to adopt advanced technologies. What we're trying to do is make sure that communities that need these vehicles the most are not left behind, and that communities that have been overburdened for decades with excessive emissions are not going to be subject to pollution going forward simply because they can't afford the technology.
But some programs seem to be reaching disadvantaged communities better than others. Looking at data from the state's Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, only about a third of rebate dollars given to individuals in 2021 went toward low to moderate income rebates. But numbers for the state's Clean Cars for All Retire and Replace program show almost 90% of participants were low income.
Clean vehicles are used everywhere in California. So you want to have a certain amount of rebate funds that are funding clean vehicles regardless of where they're being used. But then you want to have a very targeted amount of money that can actually make vehicles affordable to California's residents that would be challenged to buy even a conventional new car.
But so many incentives can be confusing. That's where community organizations come in.
That confusion also kind of ends up having the benefit of encouraging a lot of face-to-face interaction. It ends up working really well once you've got a trusted community voice that is there to explain what's possible.
But there's one more piece to the puzzle: perception and awareness.
And I think in particular, that's where community-based organizations and other kind of trusted messengers can come in. If you know that your neighbor just got an electric car, you're probably more likely to get one yourself, right?
And here's the bigger question: are the state's zero-emission transportation goals possible?
I've seen a lot of projects, being presented and opportunities being put in front of us, but this one feels very real. It is going to happen. I see no other future in front of us.
Electric vehicles are meant to be a key way for us to curb oil use and fight the climate crisis. But just how green are electric cars? We take a look at why these cars might be bad for the environment. It's no secret the U.S. has a car obsession. There are an estimated 290 million vehicles registered in the country. That's nearly one for every person, including children. Each year, about 12 million of these vehicles end up in junkyards, where parts are taken out to be reused or recycled. But hybrid and electric vehicles present a new challenge. They have large batteries that can be toxic, and there are questions about what to do with them at the end of their service life. We visited several junkyards. While the operators did not want to talk on camera, they did show us around. One had a pile of old hybrid batteries. Another had them tossed among other parts. Some still were in the vehicles.
There are risks associated with this. Aged batteries or damaged batteries, lithium-ion batteries that we use in electric vehicles are a fire hazard. It's important to make sure that these batteries are managed correctly at the end of life. There's also a risk that you could have heavy metals and other hazardous materials leached into the environment.
And this is the first meeting of the California Lithium-Ion Car Battery Recycling Advisory Group.
2 years ago, the California legislature set up an advisory panel to develop regulations on managing batteries from zero-emission vehicles.
How would we incentivize battery recycling?
The panel was made up of vehicle manufacturers, recyclers, and environmentalists.
A lot of electric vehicles will be retiring in the next 5, 10, 20 years. We don't have this complete infrastructure in place to handle the battery inside the vehicle. The intent of the advisory group was to devise policies that would ensure as close to 100% of all of these batteries coming out of electric vehicles will be recycled, repaired, and reused back into another electric vehicle, or they could be reused as stationary storage applications for the grid.
Mohammed Rosti is already doing some of that work. He runs Hybrid Battery Solution from a small room in San Leandro.
What we do is get the old recycled batteries. We check the capacity, the voltage, see how much they can hold the load. And if they're reusable, we put it back in the car. If they're not, then we recycle it. This technology is about 10, 15 years old. We focus on recycling each part of the battery. So like this one is still alive, we can still use this. The goal is to have zero waste.
There's a lot of research into making the batteries to be able to extract those materials from the cells, from the batteries, and to reuse them. The value of those electric vehicle batteries is only going to increase, and there's going to be a lot of interest in reusing those batteries in other applications. So I don't think there's a major concern down the road about abandoned EV batteries, because there will be quite a bit of value associated with them.
Waste management is rarely profitable for the company doing it unless there's a fee involved. We pay a deposit on cans and bottles so that there's an economic driver for seeing recycling happen. We have to acknowledge that the industry might not just happen on its own. We might need to intervene a bit with policy to make sure that the incentives are in place to see those batteries recycled. Everybody has a lead-acid battery in their car. It's what makes your engine start, right? Those batteries are recycled at rates of upwards of 99% in the US. We all pay a deposit at the beginning, and when you turn that battery in, the deposit comes back. And that's how we get them recycled. Right now, for electric vehicle batteries, we don't have any kind of program in place.
The leading recommendation is to have the vehicle manufacturer handle the battery while the vehicle is under warranty. When the vehicle reaches the end of its life, an auto dismantler would be responsible for the battery. But if no one wants it, the original manufacturer would have to take responsibility for it again. But disposing of the batteries is just one environmental challenge. Another one is the mining of the materials and metals that are used to make them.
We can't replace dirty oil with dirty mining. In order to have electric vehicles, we need new metals that we've never needed at scale before, metals like lithium and cobalt.
The demand for lithium has gone up really fast. A lot of newer lithium is coming from Australia. They're getting it from hard rock minerals, which historically have meant they have higher environmental impacts.
Organizations like Earthworks fight to reduce the environmental impact of mining and energy extraction. It created a system called the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance, or IRMA for short.
We're working on getting mines to become IRMA certified mines that will help assure customers downstream, automakers, that the product that they're using doesn't come at the harm of communities and the environment.
Not all lithium comes from other parts of the world. Last year, the California legislature created the Lithium Valley Commission to study extraction of the metal from the Salton Sea, an area that's already considered one of the most polluted places in California.
In the Salton Sea, we have geothermal electricity production that uses brine that's brought up in order to generate electricity. And that brine happens to be rich in lithium. The state is working on to determine whether we can extract the lithium from that brine for electric vehicle production. But also in the Salton Sea, we have some very acute environmental impacts.
It's not just lakes like the Salton Sea that have faced environmental harm. There's growing concern about mining for minerals on the ocean floor.
On the floor of the ocean, we have deep sea corals, which have been living for hundreds, if not thousands of years. We have animals like the bloody belly comb jelly and many other animals that are the basis of the food chain for whales, dolphins. This is a very diverse ecosystem.
The Monterey Bay Aquarium is co-sponsoring legislation to prohibit leases for mining within 3 miles of the California coast. It's hoping that inspires bans further into the deep ocean.
Seabed mining destroys entire habitats as it grinds up the crust of the seabed.
When minerals are taken from the seafloor, that's just the beginning of the process. The parts that they want to keep are taken out, but then the mud and the silt gets pumped back into the ocean. Once you put sediment into the water column, that's going to be carried off to currents literally 50, 100 miles away from the source of the mining. It's going to make the environment really cloudy, and it'll affect their feeding, finding mates, all kinds of processes that rely on bioluminescence in the water column.
EV drivers are choosing electric vehicles because they care at some level about the impacts. Automakers are also recognizing they need to do things better. We have Tesla demanding free prior and informed consent from indigenous communities where mining is done. We have BMW and Volvo with a moratorium against deep sea mining.
We should be excited at the prospect of this big transition away from internal combustion vehicles and the opportunity to do it right.
More electric cars are available now than there ever have been. Are you looking to ditch the pump for the plug? More specifically, would an electric car meet your driving needs? If you're inclined to quickly answer no, here's a revealing test you can do. For a week or two, make careful notation of how many miles you drive each day. Commuting, shopping, family activities. You might be surprised that you don't drive as many miles in a single day as you think you do. The April 21 AAA driving survey found the average American drives about 30 miles per day, and even many with longer commutes often never drive more than 100 miles on a workday. And every new electric car on the market can easily make it at least 100 miles on a charge. An increasing number can go over 200, and some can easily do more than 300 miles before having to be plugged in. As for the cost of the cars themselves, sure, many are pricey, but a number of models are now available starting at about $40,000, and most studies show that operating an EV costs far less each year than a comparable gasoline car. The state has multiple rebate programs to help you with the cost as well. The Clean Vehicle Rebate Project offers $1,000 to $7,000 for new and eligible zero-emission cars. There are income caps for this program, and it offers increased rebates for low to moderate income families. The Clean Vehicle Assistance Program is a grant-based program for new or used cars that can only be redeemed from approved dealerships. Eligibility is based on income, and the application process can take 3 months or longer. Clean Cars for All is an income-based scrap and trade program administered through local air districts. But what about long-distance travel? Mazda has a unique solution to road trips for their new MX-30, a fully electric compact SUV. Aimed at city dwellers, its range is on the low side by today's standards at about 100 miles. But get this, Anyone who buys or leases one will have access to other Mazda vehicles with engines 10 days per year for 3 years. Drop off your Mazda EV at the dealership and drive off in a different model for that weekend getaway. Peace of mind, even if you never actually use it. If you're not ready to make the leap to a fully electric car, a plug-in hybrid can be a great transitional technology.
Many people in using plug-in hybrids, they initially buy it for both technologies and find out that the electric part of it meets most of their daily commute needs. It's a great way to get started in this technology.
Several models of plug-in hybrids or PHEVs are available, like the Ford Escape and Hyundai Santa Fe plug-ins. They're in the sweet spot of vehicles that most people are buying anyway, compact SUVs. And if you want to go pure electric but feel priced out of the market, remember there are hundreds of thousands of EVs that have been sold over the past 10 years and get traded in on new ones. Shop for a bargain at a dealership that will offer a warranty on the battery and electronic components. You might not get some of the incentives the newer electric cars come with, but you're also likely to get a bargain. Still not convinced? You probably have a neighbor, relative, or coworker who drives an EV. Ask them about their experiences, good and bad. Sometimes electric car drivers make the best salespeople. Who knows? You could end up being one as well. The road to zero is going to be a long journey, and there will be bumps in the road on the ambitious goal of making this happen. But if any state can do it, it's California. We've got the innovation, the technology, and the political will to make it happen. And as California leads, the rest of the country is likely to follow. And of course, that's good news for the future of the planet. I'm Dave Coons. Thanks for watching.